Hey there, welcome back to Flat Tire Farm. Today we're going to make 3 types of berry syrup that you can water bath can so it's shelf stable for 2 years. First we need berries. These are all berries that I got frozen from Azure Standard. These are ones I just got and I want to start getting processed so I can kind of reduce the things in the freezer. And these are ones that have sat in the freezer a little bit longer. You can see they look a little bit more mangled. But I'm going to make big batches of berry syrup today. Blueberry, raspberry, and strawberry, and I'm going to can them. I'm going to use an approved canning method. I know you're shocked. Sometimes there is a little bit of adjusting that we'll need to do, and I'll kind of take you along if we need to do that. But for this very first batch that I'm going to make, I'll make just a regular size single batch. One thing for sure, I am guaranteed to be purple by the end of this day because we haven't even started and I'm already a mottled purple. Okay, I got things portioned out into manageable sizes now. For 1 batch of syrup, you're going to need 6½ cups of fruit, fresh or frozen, and that will make you about 9 half-pint jars of syrup. Now, I want to make a double batch of each of these types of berries, so there's about 13 cups of each one. There's 13 cups of blueberries. This is kind of a guesstimate because it was kind of a big frozen brick, so I'm guessing that's 13 cups. Now, if the strawberries were fresh, I could squish them down and get a nice, good, tight 13 cups out of it. But like I said, because they're frozen, there's a lot of air gap in there and you can't like squish them together, right? That makes sense to you, I'm sure. So that's one of the things that we're adjusting on. Also, when you cook it down, you really need to get 4½ or 5 cups of juice out of every 6½ cups of fresh or frozen fruit. Now, for a quick example, for this wild currant syrup that I made earlier today, currants have huge seeds in them. So 6½ cups of currants cooked down to nowhere close to 4½ to 5 cups of juice when I took the seeds out. So we might have to adjust as we go later on, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. I figure we'll start with the blueberries because, well, they're the easiest ones that we're going to do today. And we need 6½ cups of berries. 4, 5, 6, and there's our half. Okay, now we're just going to put it on this stove and start cooking it down until it simmers. Okay, I have our heat on medium-low, and we're just going to let these berries cook down till they get soft. Should only take about 5 or 10 minutes. I'm going to stir them every once in a while, and then I'll show you the next step. All right, they're starting to melt down, starting to get some liquid out of them. They're starting to thaw, so I think we'll start working on the next step here. Look, isn't that pretty? All right, now I'm just going to take a potato masher and start mashing them down because we want to be able to separate the skins from the juice. We're just going to keep simmering it and cooking it down and mashing it down till we think we've got all the juice separated and all those whole berries popped. Okay, I got it all mashed up here. It's pretty liquidy. Most of those berries are popped, so now it's time to strain out the pulp. Well, in an unrelated set of events, I just cut my finger and nobody wants a Band-Aid in their syrup, so I'm gonna wear my orange glove on this hand for the rest of our berry cooking, and maybe it'll help that arm from being purple like this one. Okay, so now we're gonna take our hot berry mixture, and I just have this measuring cup. You could use a bowl if you want, and I use a mesh strainer that goes on top, and we're gonna dump it in there, and we're gonna strain the pulp out, okay? So the way I do this is I just mix it around in that strainer, and I push the berries, if there's any berry pieces or they're flesh or any that haven't popped yet, against the side of the strainer, and then it gets all the juice out, and all that I'm left with is pulp. Like I said, I'm just scraping it against the metal strainer and just trying to squish all the juice out of it. And as we do this, you can see that all that juice is going into the measuring cup. Okay, and you just keep going until you got all the juice out of there you think you can get, and that there's just really sticky pulp left. I'm just gonna dump the pulp here in this bowl, and I'll feed it to the chickens later. I think they'll enjoy it, especially for the berries with the seeds. So I'm just gonna keep going and keep separating the pulp and the juice, and I'll meet you back when it's all separated. Well, it looks like those blueberries only gave us about 3½ cups of juice, but we're gonna go with it. I'll just dump it back in this pan, and then we need to get 6 3/4 cups of sugar. Okay, in goes our sugar, and then we just put it back on the stove. Okay, now we're going to bring this up to a boil, and once it boils, we will let it boil for 1 minute. We're pretty close to boiling here, and so I'm going to take this foam off. That way my pot doesn't boil over on my stove. Okay, and we're just gonna let it boil for a minute now. Okay, there's our minute. We'll turn the heat off and get ready for the next step. Okay, now we just have to get it jarred up. I've got the water bath canner on the stove. It's heating up because we want to make sure that we put the hot syrup into the hot water bath canner. The water bath canner has enough water in it that when I put my jars in there, the water will come up over the jars about 1 inch or 2. So now we just have to get some jars filled. It's pretty simple. We're just going to put my jar funnel on there. Ladle it in. We want to give it a 1/2 inch of headspace, and that just means that there is a 1/2 inch of space between the very tippity top of the rim of the jar and our syrup. And I'm going to do my very best not to make a giant mess because if you don't know, cleaning up hot sugared anything is a horrible idea. So the less I have to clean up, the better. Okay, we got our 1/2 inch of headspace. Now we want to keep the rim of our jar really clean, otherwise the lid's not going to seal. See if I can hold this. It's pretty warm. Okay, so I just take a wet paper towel, clean it all off. There wasn't much on there, but we wanted to get that off. Okay, now we take our lid, we put it rubber side down on that nice clean rim of the jar. We're going to put our ring on, finger tight, which means that we turn it till the threads just catch. And then we're going to turn it 1/8 of a turn of the circumference of the jar. Tighten it just that much. And that one's ready to go. Let's get the rest of these filled. Okay, our water bath canner is getting warm. We got all of our jars filled. Even these teeny tiny little gift ones, they're cute, huh? They're just single lids with a little rubber seal on them. They don't work for pressure canning, but they'll work for syrup because we're just water bath canning. Now we just got to get the jars in there. All right, now we just wait for this to boil. We'll set the timer for 10 minutes and we'll let these jars water bath can for 10 minutes. See you back in a moment. Okay, it's been our 10 minutes. Let's see how we did. I let this cool down just a little bit. All right, not too shabby. On to the next one. Okay, now the raspberry one is done almost identical to the blueberry one, so let's see how fast I can run you through it. Put the raspberries in a pot. Put the pot on the stove. Turn the stove on. Wait. Then when you forget you got raspberries on the stove and you burn it, quick dump it into another pan so it doesn't taste like burnt berries. When it's nice and soft, mash it up. Strain the juice from the pulp. And then when you realize you've taken on way too much for one morning and your hand can no longer push any more berries through a sieve, realize that it's time to destroy a brand new flour sack towel and make a makeshift berry press. It'll come out in the wash, right? Then you dump all the juice and all the sugar back in the pan. Back on the stove it goes till it boils for a minute. Put it in the jar, yada yada, 1/2 inch of headspace. Lid, ring, yada yada, finger tight. In a water bath canner, put the lid on, boil 10 minutes. Huzzah! Okay, this strawberry one's going to be a little bit different because I want to have some whole fruit in my syrup and not just have the clear syrup part. So what I did is I kept out about a quarter of the fruit. Just like the other recipes, I'm going to pour the fruit in the pan, put it on the stove, mash it down. Now these strawberries have already had been washed and had the tops taken off. They came from Azure Standard that way, so I didn't have to do that. But if you were using fresh fruit, you would want to make sure to core them and take all the little leafy parts out and get them all washed up. So I'll meet you back after I get this cooked and mashed down. Okay, we're on our last bit of strawberries here. We'll go ahead and pull the pulp out. Let me get things cleaned up and I'll show you the next step. Okay, we got things cleaned up a little bit. We got all the juice in the pot, and now we're going to cut up the strawberries, however big of chunks that you want to have in your syrup. Now we got all of our strawberries diced up. They're going to go right in the sugar. Okay, this time I'm going to heat up this juice first till it's almost boiling, and then I'm going to add the sugar in, and that way this fruit is in the heat the least amount of time as possible. Then I'm going to run it the same way I ran all the other batches. We're going to heat that liquid up till it boils for 1 minute, then we're going to put it in the canning jars, put it in the water bath canner for 10 minutes, and then huzzah, huzzah, we have shelf-stable syrup for 2 years. Thanks for joining me on my little berry syrup canning adventure today. Stay tuned for the next video, guys.
Gosh, look at that. Look at it. All right. That's perfect.
Good, I'm glad you like it.
Wow. That's the stuff there.